Yeah, let's have a seat there.
Good.
So maybe before having this two-way discussion, so John, like, what did you? So first, can you tell a little bit more about you, about what you do at CometChat, and also like some wrap up of what you got from previous talks, mainly like how it resonates with you.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, oversee revenue at CometChat. Spent the last, call it 10 years in customer-facing roles, so marketing, primarily sales. AWS 10 years ago through to CometChat today, and I guess the through line of that would be I've had to think through how to help buyers understand the value, the monetization value of what we're, the products that I'm selling. And just to kind of maybe qualify CometChat, AWS, of course, is infrastructure as a service. I think of where CometChat sits, there's a lot of companies like us, and so I'll, use CometChat as a stand-in for this kind of category. I think we're a layer above that, which I think of as almost like building blocks or components that you plug in via API. And I think partly what I maybe would emphasize in what we talk about, what I've learned is, I first heard this from you, the whole idea of when we talk about monetization of APIs, it's the idea that you're picking the right component part in this case, or right API for whatever business you're in, however you make money, what facilitates that, what helps foster that, as opposed to let me figure out like how I can monetize this specific API, for example. So this is your line, right? What is it? It's
the line I love to is don't think what are the best business model for APIs, but what are the best APIs for your business model.
Yeah.
It should be a mean, it should be a strategy. And sometimes I've seen many, for example, large corporation, banks or whatever, giving free API. I was trying to convince them to have free APIs, right? And I say, why? I say, because what's your business model? Our business model is to create accounts and give credit, do mortgage and credit and everything. So say, yeah, why don't you build an ecosystem of application around yourself that empowers your existing business model, right?
Yeah.
So that was this idea behind that.
Let me give you a little background on CometChat, because I think I can build upon that idea and give you an example of how our customers are following your lead on that. So, and again, I say this because I think it's a useful stand-in for a lot of companies kind of in our category. So CometChat, I think of it as having being started twice. In the first period, I call it the 10,000 hours period. And of course, I'm borrowing the idea created, popularized by Malcolm Gladwell, that you become an expert in 10,000 hours. So the founders of CometChat, this goes back to 2009, inspired by Facebook Messenger, thinking, I bet businesses want that kind of application embedded in their app. And so spent the next 10 years building that product as a services business for companies, and built a very successful business that way. That's like the 10,000 hours period. And coming out of that, I don't think anybody was an expert on how to solve that specific problem, which now is a component, right, than they did. That's phase one. Phase two I call the million hours period, which is we're now going to launch this as a SaaS product. And so they took a team of 12 engineers and over 2 years built, based on all those iterations, best-in-class product. They didn't even open the doors for business for 2 years, just building, right, with 12 engineers. We're now 50. So if you just do like any kind of basic math calculation on number of engineering hours into that product, we're well over 1 million, if not 2, right? So the point of that is, a couple of things. One, these aren't APIs that are like simple or just meant to be consumed. They're actually designed from the beginning to be embedded. And and the difference there is it's not like it's, the connective tissue or code that gets like calcified in your code base. It's more like a fully operational, fully baked engine that you drop in the hood. And APIs are the wiring and the plugs that connects you to that and give you full access to its power, right? And so So because of that, that has important implications for how you would monetize something like a component part, right? Like, and it gets to this idea of picking the right, in this case, component part API for your business, as opposed to trying to find a business model for that. You had I can give you an example of that, but you had something you wanted to break in on?
No, well, I was talking about the difference between like sometimes open APIs or what we try to call embedded, right? So no, open APIs is like APIs you consume for a capability, but you just consume for yourself, right? Embedding is that you really take the value proposition of someone and you repurpose it, like you resyndicate it or you embed it into your own experience and channels to provide for your own community or channels. So this is this quote saying that with an embedded strategy, right, an embedded economy, they are just brands. Banking is as a service, telecommunication is as a service, everything is as a service. The goal is to have a brand and a community that believes in that brand, and you will deliver them whatever, banking product, telco products, or whatever, right? So yeah, only brands, no more products, just brands and channels, and your ability to gather people around a brand. And for example, they say Uber can be the next fintech. Uber can mean fintech tomorrow, right? For their drivers, for their users and everything, right? Uber cards and everything. They will embed financial capacities, right? So this is really what I want to share with you, the open versus embedded aspect. Like, how do you just consume for yourself, or no, you want to resell it, kind of, or you want to repropose it to others?
Yeah, so that's the perspective I'm coming from, is it's embedded, and so how do you, there's a bunch of monetization options if that's the approach you're taking. And there's direct monetization where you're actually reselling. We have customers that are they take in CometChat, they resell it to their audience. That's really straightforward. There's others where it's much less direct. I'll give you an example of someone I've been on the phone with over the past few weeks, so it's top of mind. Working with a pharmaceutical company. Their business model is selling medicine, right? Selling drugs. One of the main channels for them, sales channels, is of course pharmacies, which is under threat, right? It's almost like the Uberization or the consumerization. Is that the word? Of
disintermediation, consumerization, whatever. Yeah.
So Amazon just bought another. Was it One Medical?
One Medical.
Just a few. Okay, so they are now taking control from this pharma company and others. And so what they're doing, because they have these really like out-of-the-box, powerful engine component parts that they can plug together, they're creating, as almost like a center of excellence for the industry, their own version of telehealth that they then give to their pharmacy partners. And they're able to do that because, it's almost like this like design principle now. If you think of it as an engine you plug in, is the component parts can be fungible, right? Like you don't have to build this in such a way that if you plug it in, you can't unplug it. And so not only does it accelerate the speed to market, but also significantly lowers the risk, right, of making the wrong decision, for example. It empowers people then to move faster and try things and experiment. And so this is an example of them, well, let's see if this works. Let's just give them the tools they need to kind of disintermediate our own market and reach our customers and sell. Ultimately, like, what's their business model for that API? Selling drugs, selling medicine. But this is technology that allows them to do that, and they can do it because they just have these component parts they can plug together.
And this is what I like in the embedded strategy. It's a friend, it's father of a friend who told me, like, do you know why I've been quite successful in my life? And say, oh, please tell me. He told me, because I helped other people to be successful. So I took a piece, I captured a little bit of value of the success I was giving to others. So for me, this is the embedded strategy, right? You build something that generates value, but you can't scale it across all channels. So you will, I give it to you through an API. You have access to it to make more value out of it on your own community channels, whatever network of pharmacy or whatever. And so, like, it's not a gift, but I hand it to you, and so I make some value, but you will add more value to your own channels, right? So that's also a way to.
What was the saying? What was the actual?
The actual saying is like why I'm why I'm rich,
Yeah,
not success. Why I'm rich is because I make other people rich. You know, I help. You know, so we're saying that at the end we only capture a fraction of the value we generate. Some people more, some people less. But at the end, you are success because more people make more value with what you give them. You know, so and you capture that. So this is why being open. And this is what Jonathan Hirsch, yesterday, the economist researcher, say that this is why API revert the firm. So they say that the firm has an ecosystem, but with APIs, you embrace your ecosystem and you're able to capture value outside of the company walls with the partners and everything. And so this is why you accumulate a little bit more value. And you were showing company in average who have open APIs and did the right way make 68% more revenues and 38% more profit over 10 years, and he did the research on companies over $2 billion. So it's not startups, right? You know. So yeah, so this is what. But the example with pharmacy is really interesting.
I think there's a related point there, and this is also something that I see in small businesses or enterprises, and that is maybe the second almost like plug-in design principle, which is you want to plug into components like this that you need to auto-refresh. Almost. Maybe a corollary way of saying that is anything you homebrew, and we have a lot of people who say, I can make this myself, and they can. And we actually have customers who make it themselves and then come to us. But part of that is because anything you homebrew has an expiration date. If it's like a product that needs to be refreshed. In the case of user-to-user chat, which is the framework that we provide, the consumer expectations kind of track to what they're doing in WhatsApp and iMessage. And so it's not just build it once, it's build it and maintain. That becomes a core part of you have to consistently like refresh that. And so to plug into something else that's the core product that we're selling has its own obvious advantages, right? Which is kind of like SaaS 101 almost. But it's often not part of the initial calculation for people, and it's like I'm going to go build this myself, but it's build it and maintain, and then keep up with, because there is an expiration date on anything you make yourself. So we have customers like, especially in marketplaces, we see this a lot where the point is it's not just like an ancillary thing; it's actually a core part of what they offer. Like if you're we have a customer who built it themselves, a boating marketplace, like actually connecting people is the service providers and the potential customers is a core part of their business. It's a good candidate for let's build it ourselves because it's core, right? The problem is it's actually they're better off to actually plug into that as a product that somebody else maintains that ensures that expiration date is never met than it is to try to build it and then keep up with it. It also allows them to be modular in how they approach it, and they can, again, kind of swap in, swap out, or if a vendor is not keeping up, they can unplug and plug somebody else in.
Yeah, the build versus buy, sometimes as people call it, is really important about in the API, let's say, mindset, right? Because at some point you will say there is a capability that we need. Do we need to build it, or do we buy it from someone else? Like because they have a great API, it will be easy to consume. Okay, let's go. In a few weeks we have the feature. If we have to build it ourselves, it will be a few years, right? So that's really core. But there are two important things to remember: is that company will not do it for core capabilities of their business model, right? They will, most of the time, they will not let a third-party capability if it's core and strategic for themselves. This is because they don't want to be unplugged also at some point or whatever to depend on a vendor. So it's only like support functions where it will be easy to have the buy aspect. Like, okay, we consume your API, it's fine, we can replace you. But if you fail, there is a competitor, and again, that doesn't kill our core value proposition, right? So, for example, with communication, like a chat or video or whatever, if you are a video company, you probably don't want to use a third-party API. But if you are a retail company, you want to add some calls aspect, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So this is really this aspect. And the second aspect I would say is that you can't buy differentiation. You can't buy differentiation. What you can consume via an API to build your product, your competitors can also consume it to build the same features. So at some point, your differentiator will be what you build yourself. So this is what you build, and what you consume for others. What you consume for others should be like non-strategic to help you focus on what you built, right? That will be strategic and core, and why people build your product. So two important things.
And I agree with that. I would just say that if you then decide to, in the build versus buy, build on your own, the standard is now the people who are building this as their core product, right? And so it becomes it's not a differentiator, but if you're not careful, then it becomes your competitor's differentiator, that they have a superior product, that they're not spending all their resources trying to keep up with a vendor who's just focused on, in this case, user chat.
I mean, after choosing the best supplier in the physical world or choosing the best API provider in the digital world can make a difference, right? You know, having the best suppliers in supply chain makes a difference on your supply chain. So having the best API provider do the same. But this is axiom of the API economy, as we often say. Like, company will focus. Company will consume. Let's say I'll do that the other way, right? Company will provide their core competencies to others via APIs, and will consume the core competencies of others as support via APIs, right? So this is how it works. I focus on my core. I deliver it through APIs to others, but my core is the support of someone else, right? And every core of someone is the support of someone else. So this is, but actually this is exactly what happened with the supply chain industry. Like, everybody has specialized, do one thing really well, you know. So that's really the idea. So so how does that CometChat? You see that with your customers?
Yeah, I mean, so I think we're making the same point, and this is kind of the phase we're at in like the build out of the internet. You know, it is infrastructure, now it's component parts, and it will make just as little sense for someone to say, I'm going to build my own chat in 5 years than it does to say, I'm going to build my own infrastructure.
Yes, and there is this great video from Andreessen Horowitz, you know, the investment fund, who said, like, they make the explanation with the cars. Say, when you have few cars, Ford was just making one model and doing everything. But as the car market grew, you had this opportunity to do just one piece of the car, just the wheels, or just the turning wheel, or just the engine, and so when the car, when it's spread, then when you have more engine, you can do a small part of the engine and be an opportunity. So we see many startups actually, or API companies, API product teams in large corporations, who can start to build one capability in a large market that everybody can consume. This is why a company like Stripe, Stripe was just let's say an API on top of MasterCard and Visa existing APIs. Now it's a $100 billion company, right? Because they've seen that everybody wanted payments and everything. So there is now, and CometChat is an example, there is now a huge opportunity for everyone to start, as long as you are a piece of value that a lot of people want to consume, and they have to do it themselves, and it's boring, and they don't know how to do it, but you will be the one delivering it at scale for them.
We'll make the best windshield wipers on the car.
Sorry?
We'll make the best windshield wipers or windshield or whatever it is, whatever component you're making on the car.
Yeah, or the best tires, you know? Bridgestone or Michelin, or, you know, just they do tires, right? But they are huge companies.
Yeah. There's one last thing maybe I'll share in terms of maybe the plug-in principles I'm seeing with customers. So the first was they're architecting for these fungible components, which lowers the risk, allows them to move quickly. The second was this idea that we want to plug into things that are just going to kind of auto-refresh on their own. We don't have to worry about keeping up with it. And then the third is they're plugging into things that add kind of surface value to their application. And this is another kind of maybe indirect way to monetize. But you know, something like CometChat, which keeps users talking to each other inside your application, as opposed to outsourcing it to, say, Facebook Messenger or wherever else they're going to go. If it's like a push and they want to talk to each other, they're going to do it somewhere. So having a really robust experience inside the app helps that. That in itself creates a really valuable surface inside of your application, not only in the form of engagement, but also as we think about the future and kind of big macro trends, it's also, you know, harder and harder to get third-party data, second-party data. So here is people talking inside of, you know, they walk into your store, they're talking to each other. So what can you do from a monetization perspective to make use of those conversations, right? Not only like when are they talking? Who are they? What are the topics they're talking about? What's the sentiment of those topics? So, an example is working with a customer in fintech, and they're connecting their consumers. They're trying to sell financial products, and what the chat enables them to do is connect experts with their customers. Really simple and obvious in terms of what benefit could they get. Like, how could they monetize then this component part by making sure those conversations with experts are happening inside their application? What they're talking about, what they need, what they ultimately, like, what can we sell more of, and better match supply with demand, and understand when people are happy, when they're not, et cetera, right? So there's a lot of just kind of plugging into something like this and exposing that as a surface inside your application in the form of either zero-party data or otherwise, or even engagement, provides monetization opportunities that maybe are indirect, but ultimately can translate into, again, kind of what your core business model is.
Yeah, and it reminds me, like, so now every new business can build great products and outstanding businesses based on APIs, but you need to have a vision. You need to have a vision to say, look, I think this, whatever, for example, this chat capability, widget, whatever, will be in hundreds of thousands of applications. So we need to provide it as an API. You need to provide it as a widget or whatever, so people will consume it, or text, or video, or messages, or whatever. So you need to have this vision at first to say, look, this will be democratized. These people will want this as a standalone product. So this is because if you're not visionary, other will have been for you, right? So you need to put yourself in the future and start inventing right now. And yes, but APIs are a great way. When it works at scale. So yeah, this is why when monetization works quite well. Maybe a last word to share before the break, and like about advice for people who wants to start their monetization.
I mean, I'll go back to what you said at the beginning. I think it makes, and again, this is you should coin this. It should be underneath the API Days banner, which is, you say it, tip your line.
Don't think what are the best business model for APIs, but what are the best APIs for your business model.
That's right, yeah. And then that opens up. I think a lot of times when you plug in a component part like this to solve a specific problem, it opens up additional kind of layers of potential monetization that maybe aren't obvious at first. So go back to the pharmacy example. They're going to give this away to the pharmacies, right? Could you eventually charge for it? Yeah, probably. Or the fintech company, this is a free service. But ultimately, like, what other ways, both indirect, indirect, will you be able to monetize a really powerful kind of engine like that inside of your application? It starts with what's our core business? How do we make money? How does this help us actually make money? And then does that open up additional layers of income or help us or revenue? Does it help us generate new ones as well? I wouldn't be focused on that as much as does this help us do our differentiated core better? And if nothing else, help us focus on that even more.
So there is enough beers and pizzas for the one who dare building great products and delivering them by great APIs, right? That's right. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Yeah.